In this session, we're going to cover the CASELODE Accounts Payable module. We'll start out by looking at the control file. And if you'll notice, Accounts Payable control file has two tabs. The first tab is the name and address, phone number, state and Fed ID, contact person for 1099s. You specify an integration method. And this is to stand for the type of information you want posted to time accounting and billing from accounts payable on the cost advances. In our case, we're picking vendor code, description, and the check number. We're running on a cash basis. We specify our operating account and specify our choice of check format. In this case, stub, middle check, and stub. You have the ability to interface to both time and billing and general ledger and a few other options. So once you have that set up, you set up your vendors. And all recurring vendors should be set up. If you'll notice, you have the list box like you do in all of our screens, and we'll just take clerk of court as an example. The vendor code is strictly an abbreviation of the vendor so that you can easily remember it. You specify a default general ledger account that you want to expense for that vendor, a check format, the name and address as you would like it to appear on your checks themselves, whether or not you want separate checks for each voucher for this vendor, whether or not you need a 1099, and what the minimum amount would be. We share vendors with our trust accounting module, so you can set up similar information for trust accounting. So you set up each one of your vendors in this manner, and when you're ready to pay your bills, you simply come into Vouchers and tell it you want a new one, and you have several options here. If you want the check to be printed by CASELODE, it would be a regular check. If you're entering a check you've already written after the fact, it would be a manual check. You also have the option to record credit and debit charges and wire transfers through accounts payable so that you can track it back to the vendor. It will default to a fictitious sequential number just to keep the numbers unique until it comes time to actually print the checks. It will assume the current date unless you enter a different date, and then you enter the amount of the check you're about to write. You can use the F2 key to locate the vendor if you don't remember the code itself. We'll pick clerk of court, and we'll specify that this is for a filing fee. You can enter an invoice number if there is one, a due date, or the invoice date, and then a due date, and a purchase order number if you use a purchase order system. It will default to the cash account out of the control file. And in this case, it is not a recurring voucher, but we do have the ability to set up recurring vouchers that you can create and increment automatically. You save the top part of the check, and if it is a cost advance, you select the file number that you're going to charge the cost advance to. It defaults to the timekeeper associated with the file, and then you specify an activity code, and we'll use FF for filing fees in our example. It's a unit of 1 for $100, and then you can expand on the description any way you want to. If you would like to add the case description to the voucher, you can actually just come in here and right click, and it'll automatically insert the case description. You have to fully distribute this no matter how many distribution lines it takes until the remaining amount is 0. A good example of multiple distributions would be like a loan payment where you had so much going to principal and so much going to interest. Once you have the voucher distributed like you like, you just simply save it and key additional vouchers. You can key a voucher and select Quick Check and go ahead and print it right on the spot. Or if you've keyed multiple vouchers, then you would come into print checks, select the vouchers that you want to pay, and then specify the check number and tell it to assign the check numbers. Once you click assign check numbers, it'll let you know how many numbers you need to have, or how many checks you need to have in the printer. And you tell it yes, and in your case you would go ahead and print, but we will preview this one. This is the top stub showing the expense account we're charging it to. In this case, it's actually an asset account for client cost advances. The amount, the file number it's being charged to, the name of the file, and the reason for the expense. And the check itself is in the middle, and then you have a bottom stub. So once you print your checks, it'll ask you if you want to reprint them in case they messed up in the printer. And then it'll ask you if you're ready to post the checks now. We'll say we understand, make sure we've got selected to post to GL and time and billing, and just click auto post. So the checks are posted simultaneously to the general ledger, and if they were a cost advance, it posts them at the same time to the client file. You can go in and look at the activity on a vendor at any time simply by selecting the vendor, and you can see the vouchers that have been posted and any vouchers that are sitting there in an unposted status. So if you have a question about a particular voucher, all you have to do is select that voucher and click the little magnifying glass down in the bottom right, and it shows you the detail of that particular check. To go back to the first view, you simply click the magnifying glass again, but you can look up any check on any vendor at will. To take a look at reports, you go to you go to Accounts Payable docket, and all your Accounts Payable reports are on the left-hand side. You can run a long version showing the name and address, or you can run the short version of the report. If you run the short version of the report, it'll ask you for a date range, and it'll actually show you how much you've paid to that vendor within the selected date range. You have the ability to print your check register, summary check register, outstanding vouchers report, which is a list of vouchers to be paid. You have an accounts payable to GL distribution report showing everything that has posted to the general ledger, and the similar report of everything posting to time accounting and billing, which is only your cost advances. You have vendor 1099 forms, and then you have another report called See Additional, which will show you any distributions on a particular check that did not have room to actually print on the stub itself. Occasionally you will find yourself having to change a voucher after it's already posted. So you can go to year-to-date corrections and search for any check by check number and see the details of it. Occasionally you may have to change a check number, or you may have to change the date of a check. But this will show the top stub, which was really the check portion, and then it shows the bottom portion as to how it was actually distributed. We recommend at least once a year, if not more often, that you go into admin utilities only, go to more, and purge your accounts payable system. We have some firms with as many as 20 or 30,000 vouchers still in the system, but they do need to be purged on a periodic basis, at least once a year. And if you enter a purge cutoff date of like 12/31/2012, it will purge everything that has cleared the bank and been reconciled up through that date, but it doesn't touch anything beyond that date. Many of our firms actually have multiple vendors and have paid against multiple vendors, but it's really the same vendor. And this happens when two different people in a firm will set up the same vendor without looking to see if that vendor is already in existence. This does become a problem when you go to produce 1099s. So we have the ability in the admin and more area to actually merge two vendors together. So you may have a vendor called Clerk and you want to merge it into another one. This is not the best example for that, because more than likely this would say like Radiation Clinic and Radiation Clinic PA, which really represent the same entity, and you want to merge all the activity from this vendor into this one. This results in everything ending up on the same vendor code so that you can properly produce 1099s. We hope this will help you. Use of accounts payable reduces multiple entries into the system, particularly since it updates the general ledger and cost advances at the same time. In the special maintenance feature, you have year-to-date corrections, and periodic processing. You have the ability to void a check, such as going in here and going to your list box and finding this check, for instance, and just telling it that you want to void it on 02/28/14. And once you void it, if it was a cost advance, you have the ability to create an offsetting time and billing entry. You have the choice of either creating this time and billing entry, which will put a credit on the file for that charge, or if the cost advance has not been billed to the client yet, you can simply go into time cost expense entry and delete the cost advance. Another area you have is the ability to apply recurring vouchers. And a good example of that would be like a payment that you make each and every month. It might be to your landlord for your rent. And if you go in here and treat that as a recurring voucher, any vouchers that you have to pay, let's say at least once a month, once it's set up as recurring, you can go into Apply Recurring Vouchers and select the ones that you want to automatically advance. And you can select them and assign a new due date, or you could automatically advance them by 30 days, and it will create a voucher for you for the next time this payment is due without actually having to key a new voucher right into voucher entry. So it does save you some time on recurring vouchers. And of course, there's a segment on the web now about our bank reconciliation module, which allows you to reconcile operating accounts, trust accounts as well. So if you have any questions, give us a call on this product. Our number is 864-346-4486, and we'd be glad to assist. Thank you.